Good afternoon and welcome to It's Time to Talk with me, Sharif Baker, and my colleague, Kevan Jones. We're going to get straight into it, so please join us as we welcome our esteemed guests. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the Deputy Director General of the Department of Sports and Arts and Culture, Dr. Stella Khumalo. Joining her is the Director General, Mr. Vusumuzi Mkhize, and most importantly, our Honourable Minister, Nathi Mthethwa, who has graciously agreed to spend a few moments with us today during his busy schedule, assisting our President and Cabinet Ministers in fighting this pandemic and trying to find relief for our country. So at this moment, I would firstly like to say thank you, DG, DDG, and most importantly, Honourable Minister, for spending time with us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for welcoming us. This is Dr. Stella Khumalo.
Thanks very much, Sharif and Kevan, for welcoming us. Also, Vusim Mkhize, the Director General, Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. Thanks very much for being here with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, we can't hear you as of yet.
Minister is muted.
Afternoon. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Honourable Minister.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having us, and thanks for engaging with the department on the task at hand, particularly with the challenges faced by the industry, the technical and live production, and live events and production. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, it has been a long journey for all of us, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. And right off the start, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Minister, and show our appreciation that you have acknowledged us and that our sector and given us a seat at the table of discussion. We would also like to thank you for the financial relief made available to us thus far. But we'd like to get straight into the business at hand, Mr. Minister and DG and DDG. And our first question out to you is, may we ask, why has it taken so long for the events industry to be acknowledged by the department?
The volume fine here.
Are you still with us, Mr. Minister?
Yes. Can you ask the question again?
Sure. Our first question to the Honourable Minister is, why has it taken so long for the events industry to be acknowledged under the COVID-19 times via the department, Mr. Minister?
I don't know why so long. What do you mean? Because right from the beginning, all the sections of the industry, including the events and technical, which mainly have most of the freelancers, were part of the process. Right from the beginning, we knew that we are dealing with a very unfriendly situation of COVID-19, which needs some cushioning of the blow to the industry, as much as we have or as much as we've got as the department in terms of the capacity and what we can offer. We did offer and we continue to do that. We acknowledge also the fact that you've raised the issue, and we have engaged with the department, which is our hallmark. We've always ready to engage, particularly from the point of view of the department, with all in the industry.
Thank you for that clarity, Mr. Minister, and we appreciate that contact has been made. Some would argue from sectors, especially with the technical side, that it has only happened now of late, but we applaud the Ministry and the Minister for acknowledging that we do exist as part of the sector that joins hands with the creative segment. To that, I'd like to hand over to Kevan Jones.
Yes, so hello, Mr. Minister, and everybody else. I think we're running this as a webinar. We have a live audience. I think around about 500 people viewing this particular webinar stream. And I think that one of the things that we want to encourage people to do is to send in questions. We already have quite a few that have been received in the last hour. But I think one of the biggest challenges exists for people that are working in industry as employed people who up until now have been able to claim TERS for the employed individuals. And of course the TERS program has fallen away as from the middle of last month, but the events industry is still prohibited from kind of working. And so I wanted to find out from you whether there was any opportunity to extend the TERS deadline or to develop some kind of alternative funding model that could be applied specifically to the events industry moving forward. So I don't know if that's something you can pick up on.
Well, thanks, Kevin. You will appreciate that the department is dealing with the industry as a whole. Each person would come from the subsectors of the industry on his or her point of view, much as you do, which we appreciate and acknowledge. At this moment, as you know, that after the first wave of the relief fund, we announced the second wave. We are enmeshed now in the process of looking at the recovery plan going forward post-COVID-19. Much as I've acknowledged SACIA's representation and proposals on how to open up the side of sustaining livelihoods, we would still make a call to the industry as a whole to contribute on the issue of broadly now sustaining the industry and us as government making our contribution to that effect. The ideas and the proposals to that effect would be mostly welcome as was the proposals to try and deal with the current situation of opening up this particular section of the economic sector in the country. So we would be looking forward to further engage with you and with others in the industry to ensure that the
freelance community and those individuals working in our sector on a casual basis. But very specifically, this issue of TERS that was made available through the Department of Labour. The TERS program has fallen away and individuals employed within our sector are no longer able to tap into any kind of support. The relief measures that you spoke about are specifically aimed in the second phase at freelancers working in the industry. And so if we wanted something that would reflect on those individuals that are employed within the sector and no longer able to generate an income, how would we go about doing that, and what support could your department provide in making that come about? And perhaps before you give me the answer, can I ask you to put your camera on, because we can't see you any longer.
There's a problem. You saw I put it on earlier on, it was fine.
Yep.
And then it started, you know, I don't know how long it's going to be on, because I had put it on earlier on.
Yes,
and
we saw it breaking up, so let's have a crack.
Yes, my network is not good. So if we break up, you'll understand that. back to your question, I have said that we are engaging the Department of Labor and Employment.
Yes.
And precisely because there are issues which we have to take cue from them. We're talking about the TES program and so on. They are the ones who are best positioned to clarify some of those issues to us. From our side, you've been engaging with the department. You know what we have and what we don't have. And there's nothing outside what we've shared with you would be able to, create outside of that. Specifically, I'm saying to you, after this second wave of relief, because this is relief, after the second wave of relief, right now we are looking broadly at the sector. What do we do? What should we do for the sustainability of the sector? And this is what I said to you, that much as you made proposals on how to open up the economy, this particular economy of events, especially live events, you are requested as well to make proposals on the broader issues of post-COVID-19 economic recovery we are talking about. That's where our focus is going to be now. But there is nothing we can offer outside of the resources which we have shared with you, what their tasks or their responsibilities would cover and so on. So this is where we are. Because you see, the people who have not been engaged with the department will have to start afresh and go through the process all over again. The advantage with you is that you have been engaged with the department, and the department did tell you what we have and what we don't have.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, and that is quite detailed in your answer. And based on what your answer is, my next question, and well, first statement is thank you for the second wave, and thank you for what you are trying to do for us. But we have a slight challenge with the second wave, and I need to find out if you can assist us by speaking to the relevant departments in the ministry to guide us. And the question comes as this: 65% of our workforce are freelancers, and yes, you've alluded to assisting those freelancers in the second wave. Unfortunately, Mr. Minister, it's taken this pandemic for us to realize the error of some of our ways. And one of those errors is not meeting our governmental obligations, and thus all the requests you have made in order for us to apply for relief cannot be met. Is there any way that you can assist us further under these special, unusual times where our freelancers can have access to this relief without infringing on the documentation needed so that they can survive? And if that is possible, because I know you've closed down the relief, I think on the 2nd or the 3rd, is there a possibility to reopen it to make sure these freelancers can possibly get this assistance? Is this something you can help us with, Mr. Minister?
What will assist in that regard would be, to be specific, we had to come up with conditions. You would recall that the Auditor General's office is part and parcel of our process, and as the Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, I've engaged and welcomed them to be part and parcel of our process. If you followed the news yesterday, you would have heard that the Auditor General is coming up with his report and his team's report. And one of the things which they've been very particular in is that there shouldn't be gaps in people who are, receiving this relief who are not supposed to. And we hit the call of the AG. So what, as I said, what will help me is to understand which part of the conditions or criteria which may be a challenge, because there are non-negotiable conditions. One of those has to do with the taxman, and that it's not within our realm to deal with it. It's part of the laws of this land, and we are going to be judged, amongst others, with that. How have we conducted ourselves? SARS itself would be on our case on that, as a matter of fact. But we've tried to, learning from the earlier experience, we have tried to, as much as possible, make the process now much easier, in the sense that people can go to any other person in the industry who's known in the industry, would say, no, I know Kevan, and Kevan is one of the people in our industry, and therefore we think that he or she deserves to be looked after or benefit out of this process, and then we take it from there. So the hawkish eye of the AG is an important one for us here, because the ones which come from the side of the department, mainly guided by the industry. You would recall that before we announced the second wave, we touched base with the industry, the organizations of the industry, particularly at the national level, and they helped us to craft the criteria. So I would be open to understand which part, and already now, I think we are at that point where we gave 2 weeks, unlike the last time where it was about 6 days or so. We gave 2 weeks for people to apply. I'll be reluctant to keep on opening up every time and so on. Rather, we deal with what we have and those. By the way, many people applied this time around. A lot of them. The numbers are high. So, it won't be easy to take that decision to open it up again.
Thank you very much for that.
Minister, can I add?
Yes.
Minister, can you allow me to also add, Sharif, to what Minister has said?
Sure, DDG.
This is Dr. Stella Khumalo, DDG Arts and Culture. Sharif, in addition to what the Minister has highlighted around the requirements from the AG, the Auditor General, in terms of issues of compliance, which we as a department, we also part of. I would also like to just add, Minister, that further to the closing dates that have been indicated on the 31st of August and on the 2nd of September, we also listened to some of the outcry that we were getting, and we allowed an internal kind of extension, if I can call it that, where for the people, Sharif and Kevan, that had applied or taken time to actually initiate their application processes, we have allowed that particular group to be able, up to the 9th of September, to submit any outstanding documents that they might be struggling to get held hold of. It could be issues around getting the references that the Minister is talking about, which indeed we have ceded the call from the sector organization to say, can we not just focus on people submitting profiles or portfolios of their work as proof of them being in the sectors or in the industry, but can they also be allowed to submit references from any of the organizations like yourselves that they might be members of, which was part of the inputs that we received from the sector organizations. So we have also allowed, as I'm saying, an extension for those people that had initiated their application up to the 9th of September to be able to get hold of those documents that might be outstanding, where they might have struggled, despite the 2 weeks that we had allowed them, as the Minister indicates. But further, Minister and Sharif and Kevan, we have also engaged with SARS around the issue of tax compliance, where we are advised by SARS that the applicants can be able to give to us, we even attached the link, Sharif, where they can actually use that particular link to register as taxpayers. And as long as they can give us the proof of registration, we would actually accept that as a process that is an initiation of tax compliance. Obviously, if a person is successful at the point of us processing payment, they would have had the actual confirmations that are issued by SARS. Minister, I just wanted to add that that particular piece of information over and above what also the Minister have highlighted. Thanks, Minister Sharif and Kevan.
DDG, thank you. Minister, thank you. That is very well detailed, and the explanation carries a lot of weight, especially from a SARS taxation point of view. There should be no excuse. And I totally understand you, Minister, that you obviously cannot continuously extending the relief date, and I applaud you for your stance in that regard. But given what the DDG has said now, if we can humbly ask for an extension of maybe 24 hours or 48 hours, because I'm sure there's a lot of our freelancers were not made aware of what the DDG has just explained. And if we could ask for an extension of just 48 hours, it will go a long way in looking after especially our freelance community that are really struggling to put a plate of food on the table. And I know you've heard this on many a times, Honourable Minister, but I'm really asking you from the bottom of my heart if you can really seriously look at another 48 hours, Honourable Minister.
Well, this process has been a difficult one. And it hasn't been a process of punishing anybody. It just came. Nobody was ready for it. As much as possible, where government is called upon to assist, would favorably look into that. I can't now, on the hoofs, just decide willingly. But I think we hear what you say, Sharif, both of you and Kevan. We hear what you say about particularly people who would have been dissuaded of applying precisely because of their standing with SARS. So today I have the delegation, the team from the department, led by the DG, the DDG. So I'm certain that they hear what you say, because you are not speaking for yourself. You're speaking for a lot of people out there who perhaps with a particular small gesture would be able to benefit, otherwise they were not going to be. So all I can say is that we hear what you say, Sharif, and Kevan. Will definitely get the department to look into and see what is possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
If I could just change the subject off the freelancers and move it on to employers, companies involved in the technical production and live events industry. I know that the bulk of the support that was available to corporations was scheduled to come through a COVID guarantee fund that was made available through commercial banks. And one of the things that we've had feedback from members on is that the banks perceive the events industry to be a high-risk sector and are applying conventional risk assessment protocols to consider applications for loan funding. And under those circumstances, many of the corporations that are active in the events sector are not being awarded commercial loans from the banks, loans that actually the government guarantee scheme was designed to facilitate. So one of the questions that I'd like to pose to you is what can your department do, or what can we do together to encourage banks, commercial banks particularly, to be more receptive to applications from companies that are active in our sector and that are essentially in the process of going bankrupt?
Well, the issue of banks in South Africa is a complex one, especially commercial banks. That is why much earlier on, government thought that we needed to have development finance agencies or institutions, the DFIs in government, to look into that, because it's not only from the point of view of the technical and live events where they would raise issues of high risk and so on. It's generally within the sector. The entire industry is having it difficult. And one of the things they raise is that the industry is not regulated and therefore pose that high risk. It is against this backdrop that the Copyright Amendment Act or bill, which is in Parliament currently, and performance practitioners are fundamental pieces of legislation which by and large look at the issue of regulating the industry, of ensuring that we try to minimize any issues raised by such institutions as financial services institutions like the banks and so on. But it's not easy. You would recall that when COVID-19 started, government interacted with banks, in particular commercial banks, to say that here is a situation which has not been planned by anybody. What could you do? How would you intervene, and so on? There's been some interventions, but all in all, it has been difficult for industries like our industry. That is why we have committed ourselves, as you would have followed up, to ensure that there is acceleration on the process of passing these two fundamental pieces of legislation. The department, led by the DG of the department yesterday, was engaging with Parliament, particularly on this aspect, that even though we know that the principal department and ministry on this is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, but we have an interest, a huge one, as this particular portfolio, because it affects by and large the very soul of the portfolio itself. It makes things difficult as they are currently, and we hope that going forward would be able. At the moment, I think that we can interact with our colleagues in the economic cluster of government, the Ministry and Department, the National Treasury, the Trade, Industry and Competition, as well as employment, labor and employment departments, because they've always been leading all of us in interacting particularly with the commercial banks.
Do you mind if I dig a little deeper into the question? As I understand it, government made 200 billion rand available as part of a government guarantee scheme at the beginning of the state of national disaster, and out of that 200 billion, only 70 billion has so far been accessed by commercial banks. Now, I'm using very broad figures, so I may have my figures slightly out of date, but I think I'm correct when I say that commercial banks have themselves not availed of the resources that have been made available to them. And my question really is what can we be doing together to encourage commercial banks to be more receptive to funding applications from organizations active in our sector?
Well, yes, we are mentioning broad figures, but more or less accurate figures of what government has availed to the private sector, and in this instance, broadly the financial services sector, the banks in particular. It's against that backdrop, Kevin, that I'm saying that the aspect of the economic cluster, economic cluster portfolios of coming to the party and raising very specific matters, which is born out of experience of our own portfolio, would be keen to engage with them, precisely because the having a commercial bank being receptive and understanding that government is there to ensure that all the sectors of the economy are assisted is what we believe and hope that commercial banks have the back of their minds, and therefore hope they will be receptive as well in such an engagement. But we'll stand ready to, on behalf of the industry, to raise these matters, both with the banks, through, of course, the economic cluster of government, to ensure that particularly the National Treasury, which has been intimately involved in working with the banks and the availing the relief we are talking about, and other aspects of assistance and contribution from government, mainly saying that we are here as government. We are trying as much as possible to cushion the impact of the period we find ourselves in to all of the people of our country across the economic sector.
Minister, I'd like to just... Sure.
Can I be allowed, Vusim Kize here, the DG?
Yes, hello DG.
I just want to add, thanks very much, what Minister have said, that it is important to understand that the response of government is more of a collective response to such a sector, because the banking industry always use their own risk-based criteria on an individual. So they will say, yes, we understand the sector, but we have to deal with each individual within the sector. And that's why when there was letter loan payment holidays, also they didn't say everyone, but it needed to be approached in such a manner that they look at a risk profile of each company or each person. So as Minister is saying, it's important that that is how government has approached this, to deal with everyone. It didn't exclude whether you are from the creative sector, as a small business, you still have to be catered for and follow those rules. We have been working with the Small Business Development Department also to try and deal with this. That's why we've got now a partnership with them, on the other hand, Kevan, which is a totaling 23 million rand, to try and assist those who are in audiovisual, those who are in craft. It is exactly because we need to cater as government as much as possible to those who are most vulnerable. And we know that the live events and technical events are some of those who are extremely vulnerable. It has taken a lot of time to be where we are, but we must note that we are also opening. We started with the opening, the debate, as you've presented, about is it 50 people? Those are the things that Minister referred to earlier, for us to look at and address, to see that this is part of the economy. People are not asking for just relief. They want to practice their craft. They want to be self-reliant. And that is why then we are engaging with your submission relating to opening the economy and dealing with the issue of maybe the numbers that will make economic sense. And then the industry is able to move. But lastly, I think the issue, I'm sure Stella did talk to it. I was just taken out by the network. But the stimulus package that you referred to in terms of opportunities for the sector, there is a clear, dedicated approach to say we will try our best with this package to also assist the organizations the best we can. And when we announce that, we will then be able to inform you on how that can work best and people to then apply as part and parcel of this stimulus package, economic and employment stimulus package, so that we preserve the jobs while we create new ones. That is also specific to assist this sector of ours, including the technical event sector.
Thank you, DG, and thank you, Minister. And I wanted to say, you've painted a very clear picture, especially when it comes to holistically what the government is doing with the stimulus package specifically for our sector, but also with commercial banks. And we understand there are various avenues to try and find the best answer possible for everybody. And I'd just like to afford myself and Kevin's assistance to you and the DG in regards to the commercial bank challenge, which may look after our employers and employees, which in turn will look after the freelancers moving forward in the bigger picture, so that we can tend to ourselves rather than just relying on government. And I look forward with bated breath, especially to you, Honourable DG, that where we can find banks that are still receptive to looking after debt vacations for our companies until we are able to open up our sector under the level amenable and laid out by the NCC. So I'd just like to afford that opportunity and segue straight into what you've just mentioned with regards to how we can stimulate our economy ourselves under the leadership of the department. And I defer now to Kevan with regards to discussions that we had yesterday or the day before yesterday with regards to our suggestions and proposals made with our Event Safety Council to try and reopen our sector effectively, making sure on a humanitarian level we are safe. Kevan?
Yes, so I'm not sure how to pose this question, but essentially we've had a series of conversations with the department about reopening the industry. We've put together some very specific and comprehensive reopening guidelines that can be used across the board within various events, including events related to theatrical productions, etc., etc., etc. And I know that we're planning on working together to try and get the industry back to work sooner rather than later, but we still don't have any specific guidelines in terms of a time frame. And I know that's one of the questions that people have been sending questions in during the broadcast, and one of the questions that's come up most regularly is when are we going to be able to go back to work? So I know that that's a difficult question to ask, but bearing in mind that we do have these reopening guidelines that are designed to protect patrons attending events and designed to create a safe working environment for individuals working at these various events. Do we have an idea on a timeline, realistically? When do you think we're going to be able to go back to work?
DG will give you specifics, Kevin, of the approximation of the time. And as you say, You are asking a difficult question, but very necessary.
Yes, I'm aware it's difficult.
It's about livelihood. Especially because it's about the livelihoods of so many alive and people who do so much for this country. I would start by saying, just to give you an idea, I would start by reiterating what I said earlier on. And that is to thank you for constructively raising issues of the industry with the department. And the doors of the department are always open for engagement with everybody. You yourself are saying that you have had a series of meetings. So I want people to understand that our meeting or the meeting of the department this week and yourself was part of a process, a protracted process of engagement with the department. It wasn't a once-off thing. It wasn't also reacting to what was happening this week, particularly in Durban. And to that extent, I would want to say that everybody is allowed, and we stand ready as a department to engage rather than getting into confrontation with the police and everybody. We are open. We invite everybody to do as you did, to engage the department. And I've heard, DG, that there are other organizations which are trying to get hold of the department, and we encourage them to do that. I heard from the leader of SACIA today, for instance, that they would want to take this route. And it's the most constructive route. Let us talk. Let us negotiate. Let us engage as South Africans. There is no need for people to be, ducking bullets, rubber bullets, ducking to be arrested, then raising the matter, putting concrete proposals on the table, like you have put the concrete proposals. Now, what is going to happen, Kevan and Sharif, you have made your in-depth analysis from your vantage point of the industry. And out of that, you then proceeded to make concrete proposals, which we've acknowledged. And my agreeing to interact with you today in the May was to thank that kind of a move. So as we speak, the matters now have been passed on to the two departments, Department of Health, because whilst we talk sustaining livelihoods, we do that in an environment of saving lives. So Health Department is our leader insofar as that is concerned. You have also spoken broadly about people who are employed in the industry. We're sharing this with Labour and Employment Department. And we hope that this department this week are going to be able to look into this proposal. We've had in the past good cooperation from our colleagues, other departments, because there's always urgency of the matters raised. Then from that point, it's going straight to the National Command Council. And the Command Council is going to be deciding on what is to be done. So you can make your calculations from there. But I can tell you that from our side, we would be emphasizing the importance of fast-tracking the process from our colleagues' point of view, so that we, equally as you have taken time to prepare your proposals, we respond accordingly and with, as I said, necessary urgency to the matter. So for us, it's an urgent matter. We are not happy when we see our people who are raising serious and genuine questions about their livelihoods. Sure. We can't be happy when we see them, being in conflict with the law enforcement agencies and everybody else. We want everything to happen peacefully because one important thing everybody is raising, including practitioners and creatives this week in Durban, is that you are not coming up with cap in hand. You are saying you are capable, you want to work, you want to be given space to work. And as government, we have to listen to what you say. But obviously, as you know, as it is happening in other segments of our portfolio, like in sport, people knew they had to come up with a proposal or proposals which would be scrutinized and go through the processes like any other. And in that way, I can tell you that we'll put as much pressure as possible to see the process being accelerated so that at the end of the day, people do not wait forever.
Thank you, Minister, and I applaud you for your words. And whilst we're just cursing through some of the other questions, I'd like to make a statement and ask the DG to jump in here, is that in this week, we did send out some communication to the brothers and sisters out in the industry of our engagement with the department regarding the reopening guidelines and protocols and which way we want to move forward and possibly open a little bit more come the middle of this month and then perhaps something next month. But one of the questions that came up was also about the drive-in scenario of what if we can try and open this up sooner rather than later will also go a long way to try and help us. So this is more, we're telling people that we are engaged with the department, everybody, but I don't want you just to hear it from me. And I'd like the DG to come in here and just reiterate the conversation that we already had in this week and our plans moving forward, which will then in turn support exactly what the Minister is saying in which way we go forward.
No, thanks very much, Kevan. I think, and Sharif, for that comment. Yes, the plans that you gave us are quite solid. Firstly, the fact that they are talking to consultations that have happened across by the Events Safety Council, including the municipalities that you have engaged with the provinces and the Department of Health. And I think they are already on a sound footing for us to look at those safety measures that are quite crucial for us, because social distancing, keeping the spread of the COVID-19 is quite crucial as we open up the economy. So based on that and the proposal you've made about the drive-ins, as well as the number of people that you think can be the startup as phased-in approach, we think those things are the things that means I have said we are taking them through. In fact, even as of tomorrow, as you know, government keeps on planning. There is no more Saturday, Sunday. Even tomorrow, as DGs, we are meeting. This will be part of our discussions to say this is what is being presented. Department of Health through the Ministerial Advisory Committee that advises on whether these protocols are adequate. Do they then suffice for us to open, or do we need to do adjustments in terms of that? We will be able to come back to you. The colleagues in the sector must be assured that those proposals and that plan, because we needed a solid plan, and we have 14 days in which people must lodge those plans. You were able to move ahead of the curve and submitted quite early, and we are processing them as they have arrived instead of waiting for 14 days since the directions were announced for level 2. So with that in mind, and you gave us the date of the 15th to say you're looking at around that date, but as Minister has outlined, there are approval processes, there is assessments that will be done. We even submitted your plan to National Incommunicable Disease for them to look at the plan. And in the NICD, they are quite usually very fast to analyze those plans, so that then the opening up of the events industry is always associated with safety, because that's very important. We looked at the other countries, also what they are doing, and we understand what the opening up of this sector means. It's a whole value chain that benefits. We've also engaged, I can assure you, with also the promoters who have also given us their plans, because with promoters, you know that then the events can be staged quite easily, and employment can happen for a number of other people within this value chain. I'm just wanting to say, Sharif, that all these efforts that you have made are assisting us then, as long as there is a plan that the department can look at and then be able to present for consideration by government, then the approval authorities will consider those plans. And I'm sure during this week, we should be able to continue to engage with that. And if there is any response we need to give before the 15th, that is what we plan to do, to update you where we are with that, so that we don't take your plans and keep quiet. But we need to give you the update on where we are with that. But we need to process them and be sure that they will not contribute to the spread of the virus while we are opening the economy.
Thank you, DG, and we welcome that. And again, I'd like to offer on behalf of our Event Safety Council, under the leadership of Mike Lord, offer any services and assistance that you may need to go through the guidelines and assist with Advocate Nkulu with anything that the department needs to make sure we can open up our sector collectively together, again, under the leadership of the Minister. Kevan?
Yeah, so I'm very aware that our webinar has gone on for an hour, and we have literally hundreds of people that have sent in questions, and so I just, perhaps as a matter of political nicety, I should ask what kind of timescale we are. Are we in a situation where we can keep asking questions of you, or do you have a time frame that you need to consider?
Well, I think, Cabinet, when the Minister had to break from one of the commitments to be here, and but myself and the DDG and Charles, the colleagues who are here, we can stay. But as indicated earlier, that Minister, in fact, had about 30, 45 minutes, and he has been here for an hour with that respect. But I think myself and DDG Kumalo, if you still need, I don't know how much time, we can stay while we allow Minister to go back to another commitment that he had to break to be here with us. Yeah.
Minister?
Well, thank you. As the DG has said, it's time we're leaving, but we have raised something which has not been raised before. It would be important perhaps to listen to the first 5 questions, if you have, and then as the DG is saying, they will be here as a team, but I would be interested to hear the kind of questions which are raised, and then from there, then I'll indicate when I leave.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead with some questions. Before I do, I actually want to just acknowledge the support of several people within the department who have been truly cooperative in terms of engagement with SACIA, particularly the Director General, Dr. Stella Kamalo. I want also to highlight the contribution made by Charles Mabaso, and although he's not participating in this particular webinar, Colin Schlitzwayo, have all been very receptive to the communications that we've initiated. And so,
as well as Topsy.
And of course Topsy, yes.
Absolutely. Topsy
Muse. So actually what I wanted to say before you go is I wanted to acknowledge the support and assistance of your staff. We appreciate them. I'm sure that you do, but maybe not as much as we do. So thank you to all of them. If I could go on with some questions. So I have a question from Leonard Ngwenya, and I'm going to summarize it. He says, job creation has been at the top of the agenda for some significant period of time, but of course, within the framework of the COVID crisis, it's more about job retention and then rebuilding the industry at some later point in time once the COVID crisis has been addressed. And so his question really is about the proposals that are on the table that will allow us to kickstart the cultural and creative industry going forward. So I don't know if I should present that question and stop. Do you want to pick up on that?
Maybe if you can just take 5 of them at the same time, and then, yeah.
Okay, so the second question presented by Melinda Pretorius asks, why are the payment processes taking so long? She says, we know that there is an allegation of fraud that is taking place within various departments, but there are many individuals that are relying on these payments, and your internal issues should not hinder people that are suffering. I think another question here revolves around, no, I'm not going to ask that question. This was about the issue of 50 persons participating in a mass gathering, irrespective of the capacity of a venue, and I think we've covered that one already. A gentleman called Ndumiso says, the idea of social distancing is killing business, and how do we go about kickstarting concerts and social events? Long questions. I'm going to ask this question. I'm not sure how we're going to respond to it. I can't see who it's from, but the question is, why does the department continuously award funding to the same people and institutions and to privileged middle-aged people without considering the role of youth and women? And I think, okay, let's leave it that one. Leave it at that one for now, if you could just answer those questions.
Okay, DG and the team, you'll be able to answer the questions. I've listened to attentively to them, and they have to do with the processes, and you'll be able to deal with them. But Ngwenya is raising a fundamental issue of the program of government of job creation. With the COVID-19 now talking of job retention and the ideas of what is to be done. Now, the stimulus package, which DG referred to earlier on, and the plan to basically retaining jobs. Obviously, some will be retained and others will be difficult to because of the availability or lack thereof of the adequate funding from the side of government. To Ngwenya, I would say that it's precisely the point I was making, that much as we have focused on the relief funding, we now are moving beyond that and look at how do we ensure that we recover, economic recovery generally across all sectors, but particularly our sector. We are inviting proposals and ideas from the industry so that when we say we have a package to deal with the issue of retention of jobs, to deal with the issue of recovery, economic recovery of the industry and the sector, we know that its ideas we've consulted with the industry, as we have endeavored to do so all the way to where we are now. So I'll end there. The DG would be able to deal with and the team. There is DDG here. I've not heard her. I heard her earlier on. Dr. Stella Kumalo here with us, and Charles, as the DG has said, they will be able to share these questions amongst themselves. But just to say, on the parting shot on my side, that I appreciate what has been raised by both yourselves and others, other creatives and other professionals and other workers, technical people, to keep on raising the issue of your sector. And again, I'm pleading to all that we can achieve more things when we engage, when we talk to each other, when we're able to assist each other to see the other side and other aspect which might have been on the blind spot, as it were. It's through that cooperation and coordination amongst all of us and sharing of information that will see us going from strength to strength. Thank you very much, Kevin, Sharif, and all the best to SACIA.
Stay strong.
Thank you very much, Minister. It is clear that you know us well and you've heard us for all this time, and we thank you for the opportunity today, Minister. Please stay safe. God bless you.
Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you very much. Can I ask Stella? She can just talk to the questions by Ngwenya and maybe Belinda, and also we can then I will come in maybe on the issue of the 50 persons, and as well as maybe the issue of the funding. But and Dumiso has raised the issue of social distancing. I might be able to talk to that. I don't know if Charles is available. He can be able to add any comment maybe on the funding of people and the youth. But there are multiple programs that focus on this, like the debut fund, the venture capital that we have. But I think Minister have touched on this issue, but just on the issue of the employment stimulus and how it can assist and how this subsector can also start gearing itself to be ready for that.
DG, can I interrupt you for a second and ask you to put your camera on?
Oh, no,
Thank you.
I was asking that DDG Kumalo, can she then be able to just talk to the employment stimulus and what we are doing, and so that the subsector can begin to gear itself for that, because it's definitely something that we've just finalized the plans. We are just refining here and there, and that will assist so that Mr. Ngwenya can be able to have a sense where we are heading around this issue. And then Belinda raised the payment issue that I think we must be able to also respond. DDG, if you can, and Charles, as well as then I will deal with the issue of the 50 persons per venue, as well as the issue of the social distancing, because it's at the core of what SACIA has already raised, but the other colleagues that have raised in the sector, like SIFSA in Durban, they were raising the same matter. So I think we should be able to deal with that. I don't know, Charles, on the funding and the opportunities that are there, particularly for the young people, through the debut fund and the venture capital, the market access opportunities we're creating. But let's zoom in. And Stella, are you able to deal with those that you can, DDG?
Yes, DG. Yes, thank you, DG. Hello. Yes, I think what I just want
you can
to
show
zoom.
You can show your face, Stella. Kevin insists on the face.
I'm not sure about my face today, DG. Yeah, can I just respond to the questions, if you allow me?
Sure, DDG, of course.
Thank you very much. I wanted to just just clarify and add to the employment stimulus package that as a department, as part of the bigger intervention program that government has embarked on, we also at the point, as the DG says, of finalization and sending out the calls for the industry to apply. It's basically geared at what Ngwenya is actually saying around the issues of jobs, addressing issues around business having lost income, but also holistically, it's an intervention program that is all about economic recovery. And, in terms of our own industry, there is going to be different facets. And Sharif, and Kevan, we would actually be further communicating on this, as we say, in a matter of a few days. But basically, it's geared towards the creatives within the industry, the individuals within the industry, but also businesses. And we are talking here about both private, mainly private, and also the publicly assisted entities that might be generating further income through their own initiatives that they were unable to implement due to lockdown. So when we speak about private businesses, we're talking about theaters, etc. I'm not going to try and enumerate all of them, lest I leave any out of the list. So those would then be able to apply through this employment stimulus for assistance using the development agencies that we would be utilizing in terms of processing of those applications. But we do believe that working with SACIA, organization like SACIA, working with other sector organizations that are very committed to assisting industry, we would be able to send out word so that those that are targeted in terms of this intervention can then be able to apply. It comes with specific stipulations, which we will also communicate. For instance, this must put money in the pockets of the people that have actually lost income. It is an intervention that is specifically for the next 6 months, starting from the beginning of October. So we are pressed for time, and it's not through any fault of ours that we're talking about this one now, but there had to be processes that we had to go through to make sure that the program is well refined and clear, in a sense that it's user-friendly for the industry to be able to understand what it is that it is supposed to do. So we do believe as a department that this is one of the very important government initiatives that would go a long way towards assisting industry. Belinda, if I got the name correctly, who spoke to the issue of why payment process is taking so long. Yeah, indeed, you are right. And we do acknowledge the fact that it has actually taken a long time for some of the applicants to receive their payment. We received about 5,700 applications, and there was close to 4,700 or a bit less than that number, I don't have the figures right in front of me, that were recommended for payment. And out of those, we have really processed a very high percentage. We're sitting with less than 200 at this point in time, colleagues, that where we are finalizing the payments. And it's mostly around a need for us to thoroughly verify that information. Because it turned out that there were duplications, there were people that were applying more than twice, and there were other challenges that I do believe we have presented to the sector organization. It was a first-time experience for all of us to be going through this, but we did our best as a department to be able to do the utmost that we could. We do apologize for those that have not received, but we do our best. We've committed also to the minister to clear these outstanding payments, and it's our team on the job, Sharif, to actually contact also, because in some of the instances, it's some of the details that might be, that are missing, that are holding back the process, beside other challenges that we do acknowledge that we also experienced. So I think at this point, let me stop there, DG. You did indicate that there are other people that will then respond to the other questions. And I think for me, those are the two questions that you wanted me to address. Thank you very much once again.
No, thanks very much. Charles, are you on the line? While we are locating Charles.
I don't think he's on the line, DG.
Okay.
But if you could put your camera on, I know that we let Dr. Stella off, and but we're not going to give you the same excuse.
No, thanks very much, Kevin. No, I think on the two issues, if I can deal with them simultaneously, the 50 persons, I think the main essence there has been that the gatherings were limited because too many people would, of course, been seen as a high risk. But as we move to the level 2, there has been an issue to say it is a phased-in approach that was aimed at saying with the behavior of the virus within the context of 2 weeks or so, the government will be able to have an opportunity to then look at whether to review this issue of 50 persons. But as per the submissions by both fitness industry as well as by SACIA, there has been a very clear indication that where there is a plan that can tell us you will keep 1.5 meter or 2 meter distance, or you use square meterages, that should be considered associated, of course, with other safety measures, health protocol measures. So when the colleagues talk of whether it's 50% or if you look at the issue of whether 50 or 70%, that is exactly what SACIA had presented, and that is what we are looking at and we have submitted to say this is the percentage maybe, because then it will be accompanied by the number of people who will then be also using scarves, using the masks for them to be protective. They will also be adhering to the issues of cleaning the venue. They will be adhering to the issues of social distancing. So it is not the aim to kill the industry about these 50 persons or the issue of social distancing. As we are saying, if you submit the plan, it gets processed. Look at the other sectors that have been able to open the economy. The main essence is about social distancing, as well as how best the other measures, whether it's sanitization of the venue, whether it is the conduct of the people, like the issue of alcohol being the issue that sometimes leads to people maybe losing their sensibilities and sometimes then risk the lives of others. That is why these issues are being taken as a package. And would like to assure the industry, both those who are raising the issue of the 50 persons or those who are raising the issue of the social distancing, it is important that we don't suffer like what other countries had about the second surge of the virus. We have been through serious hell. Let us minimize, it is in our hands to do that, but we must work together without suffocating the industry. And I think we really appreciate what has been submitted, like fitness industry has done, like what SACIA has done. And of course, these are receiving now attention to see whether within the window of 2 weeks that was set by government, but at the same time, the behavior of the virus, that this phasing in an incremental approach can then be done. I think that is the issue. On the funding, I think you'll remember that it's not necessarily that we target as a department individual people. People submit proposals. Proposals get considered. We normally have an open call, which will also then be adjudicated. And then based on that outcome, then those who will be funded will be funded. Then you've got people who will have, I know the issues of the festivals, the flagships. You find that those people have been able to constantly present that, because we normally say that festivals like flagship programs should be then catered for over maybe a period of 3 years or so. We rotate. That is the idea around that, because then, I mean, what do you do with Joy of Jazz? But there is nothing you can do. What do you do with Cape Town International Festival? You can't say we're washing our hands. It's the nature of the event that then forces us to say, yes, this can be, but that must not block the entry of the new people who deserve funding, because we must sustain the sector, and you cannot do that.
DG, we seem to have lost your signal.
By saying only one component must benefit. We have engaged with this sector because some people want to be funded for life, and it is wrong, because then you are closing for others. Then we are saying now people must have a sustainable plan that says if you fund us for 3 years, after that we should be able to fly on our own. Then we're able to take the new entrants. So there is no intention to favor or promote others over others.
DG, thank you for that. I think dialogue like this is of paramount importance, because just by virtue of the topics that we're discussing is answering a lot of the questions that are coming in anyway. And I would like the audience to know this as well, that our Event Safety Council, led by Mike Lord and Sam September, are working closely with the department and speaking to all the provinces and the municipalities, so they were all speaking from the same page when it comes to how we reopen our industry under COVID-19 times and after, post-COVID-19. So it just shows that dialogue like this is of paramount importance, DG and DDG, and obviously our audience. And because I was very tempted to ask the one question that came through now is why have we been sidelined? Bars can open with no social distancing, no masks, but we are subjected to these draconian regulations. And I think the DG has answered it perfectly with his response and with the greatest respect. So thank you, DG and DDG. I really appreciate it. Are there any other questions, Kevan?
Well, I think, you know, actually there are quite literally hundreds of questions that have come in during the course of this particular broadcast. We're not going to be able to answer all of them during this session. What I wanted to say is that we'll take a note of all of the questions. We're going to be actively engaged with the Department of Arts and Culture over the coming weeks, and we will act on your behalf and make sure that the questions that you've sent in to us are raised with the department. We're not going to be able to get back to each person on an individual basis, but I truly want to thank not only the department but the audience that have dialed in. I think that we have 600 or 700 people that have participated in this broadcast. So thank you very much for allocating the time and the effort and the bandwidth to participate in this discussion. And we will absolutely take your questions forward and make sure that we do everything that we can to represent all stakeholders in the industry, company owners, employees, freelancers, and those casual workers that are so critical to the industry. We are all in this together, and we are committed to making it work.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kevan. And I'd like to thank the department holistically, especially the Minister, the DG, and the DDG. This dialogue has shown that you have acknowledged us, you have heard us, you have seen this, and not just from yesterday or this week. It's been ongoing for this past 5 months where we've been communicating with you, not just us, various sector organizations in our sector. And I'd like to thank you that you have opened up your heart and arms to us all to hear us. And I'd like to thank you very, very much for acknowledging that, DG and DDG. I don't know if you have any parting words that you'd like to say before we close down this broadcast.
DDG, any comment?
Thanks, DG. I think from my side, we just want, again, as the DG was saying, give that reassurance to the industry that we remain committed to doing our best to support, but also listen, because I think for me that becomes very important, because there is a whole lot of experience that is within the industry that we can utilize to be able to improve on the kind of interventions that bring better value to the growth of the industry. So we do appreciate the opportunity given to us to participate in this webinar, but also we are going to continue engaging with other sector organizations in the same kind of format that we follow in terms of this particular and other engagements that we have had with SACIA. Thank you.
Thank you, DDG.
Maybe just to say, Kevan, that we have a number of other opportunities. Kevin, we would like Sharif to share that, because provinces have the relief fund that Minister also mobilized. We were able to get more money, and people have, we got a feedback from provinces, and we are requesting that even your members should be able to apply at a provincial level, including at those who are coming from rural areas. We will be getting the audit there of final adjudication processes, so that if there is more money available, it will again be made available to the sector to take on applications. And that is happening at provinces also. Then we've got Solidarity Fund, Sharif, that has also made available that 700 voucher, which can either be food voucher or money voucher that people can apply for. We were given 10,000 of that, and we have distributed to each province. And we were worried that province's uptake was very, very low when we took that on Friday. We will ask that the members who believe they meet the criteria there should be able to then take advantage of that. It will be a disgrace to have 7 million rand not used by the department when we have so many people. They might not look at, they must not look at it as 700 rand, what is that? It is an attempt to alleviate. It can help you get something for the family. And then, of course, we've got the other methods then of finalizing the extension. You have asked for us whether we consider the 48 hours. As Minister said, we are going to go to the drawing board and get back to you on what is possible without compromising the process, but at the same time making sure that we hear you, as Minister said, and we don't just hear, but we listen. So we will get back to you on that request that you have made. In a nutshell, the women and the youth are quite crucial. That is where we need to sustain everything. But also, I can just say that we are working on the issue of technical events codes, triple B codes. There is a process we'll be communicating to you to have this sector transformation becoming a reality, and we need to work together also in terms of that. So those are just some of the plans going forward. The stimulus package, I think, please, we will ask you to help us. We'll work with you and the sector organizations to make sure that it has both components, retention of jobs as well as creation of new jobs. We are targeting more than 15,000 jobs for the sector that must be either created or retained. So that is a big one. Time is not on our side, as DDG said, but working together with the sector, we believe that we should be able to take advantage of that. I would like to thank you. Your plan is getting attention. We want to assure you and your members that that is receiving attention. We think it is a crucial plan to help us open the economy and deal with the minimal restrictions about enabling you to do the economy, but place an obligation on everyone to make sure that lives are saved and that health protocols are maintained. Thanks.
Sorry, we understand that Charles Mabaso has just joined us. We can see a silhouette because he's got such strong backlighting. But is that, Charles, is that you?
Yes, Kevin, I've been here throughout. I've followed, but it's an issue of connection and muting and unmuting that I had a challenge with. But I've been around. I've followed all the discussion. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing it with
us.
us.
And the DG has covered all the issues the questions that we'll have shared with the meeting. But it's covered. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Charles. We really appreciate it. Well, I think there you have it, my fellow compatriots. We've been heard. We've been seen. I'd like to say that we are all God's children under one African sky. There is money available that hasn't been tapped into. Yes, it's 700 Rand, but it's 700 Rand that can go a very long way. The stimulus package has been put into place by our department. Our department has seen us and is willing to work with us. Let us all join hands in unity, in Ubuntu, to make sure that we can all get our industry back running again the way we all want it to. And as you can see, our minister wants us to together. So having said that, I'd like to thank you. My name is Sharif Baker.
And my name is Kevan Jones.
And we thank you.